Good evening, I'm Kathy Lewis, and here's what matters tonight. Company's coming, at least we hope so. Memorial Day is right around the corner, and shopkeepers and hoteliers are gearing up for what they hope will be a very successful season. The economy, of course, is the wild card in this equation. Still, owners of beachfront homes are sprucing up their rentals, and Lisa Godley reports they're hoping for the best along the Outer Banks.
Each year, people from all over the country and beyond set their sights on the Virginia Beach oceanfront as their vacation destination. But as vehicles roll in and the sand is covered by blankets and umbrellas, there's another movement underway, an exodus, if you will, by thousands who call Virginia home, to North Carolina's Outer Banks.
It's a nice day trip. In 2 hours I can be here. So I come for the day quite often.
What brings you to the Outer Banks?
The peacefulness, lack of crowds, just an easygoing atmosphere.
According to Aaron Toole, director of the Outer Banks Visitors Bureau, tourism is the most important economic factor for Dare County and the Outer Banks. An estimated 5 million visitors come here each year. About 3 million of them visit between late May and late September.
I think one of the key reasons that people enjoy the Outer Banks is because you can do so much for so little. Number one, our biggest attraction, of course, is our beaches. The Outer Banks is about 130 miles of shoreline. It's all free to access. And there are actually some beaches in this country you have to pay to access the beach, and then you have to pay again to park somewhere. Just the areas that we visited today between Kitty Hawk and Nags Head, there's about 80 public accesses to access the beach.
Another amenity that makes this area so popular is its affordability. Friends and families can join forces, rent a home or cottage for a week, and almost cut their vacation expenses in half. In fact, over the last 10 years, the number of vacation cottages here has almost tripled, from 4,000 in 1998 to more than 11,000 last year. Howard Cook and his wife travel from Waynesboro, Virginia, twice a year to meet up with 10 to 15 other couples. Howard didn't mind sharing what keeps bringing him back.
Well, there's a lot of good food down here, and I don't know, just get out on the beach and walk. I like the beach because, you can walk, nobody bother you or anything.
When or if you tire of the beach, there's always plenty to see and do here that does not involve the water. Even on a very windy Monday afternoon in early May, we found visitors brave enough to endure the blowing sand and climb Jockey's Ridge, a popular tourist spot. It was much too windy for hang gliding today. Nevertheless, the view was breathtaking. If history is your thing, how about touring one of the area's 5 lighthouses or the Wright Brothers Memorial? But don't head to the monument at the top of the hill looking for the place where the first flight took place. Look for the markers on the ground instead.
It surprises people when they realize that the Wright Brothers airplane took off just like airplanes do today, from level ground by the power of the engine and the thrust of the props. Just didn't fly too far. First flight in the world was 120 feet in 12 seconds.
It doesn't seem to matter if they've come here to spend time in Duck, historic Manio, or Hatteras Island, or if they're seeking a history lesson, an adventure, or relaxation. The Outer Banks seems to have carved a special place in the hearts of tourists from across the state of Virginia and around the world. For What Matters, I'm Lisa Godley.
And joining us tonight to look at the summer season, Jim Ricketts, who directs the Virginia Beach Convention and Visitors Bureau. Tony DiFilippo is the president and CEO of the Norfolk Convention and Visitors Bureau. And Bob Harris is vice president of the Greater Williamsburg Chamber and Tourism Alliance. Welcome, and thanks to all of you for joining us. I was kind of intrigued in Lisa's report. She was talking about the first flight being 12 seconds, which I don't know, 12 seconds, is that really a flight, or is that maybe a controlled
tourism experience
landing or something? Yeah, I don't know, but hey, it's been working for them, so we'll give them that one, no question about it. Well, it's good to have all of you with us tonight. Last summer when we were having conversations around tourism, we talked a lot about gas prices, and that seemed to be the big predictor last summer in terms of whether people would even come to the beach. Jim Ricketts, how'd your season wind up?
Well, actually, summer season ended up a record summer season, and I think one of that is because the Hampton Roads region and Virginia Beach is close to very populated areas within a day's drive. And so we enjoyed good business. One of the trends that we saw was we actually had a slight drop in visitors for the summer, but our per-party spending went up 20%.
Now, what do you make of that?
Well, we were attracting a higher demographic profile visitor because of all the new things that have occurred in Virginia Beach in terms of the product and what we have to offer. Also, we theorized we also captured some folks that, because of the flying experience, just didn't want to fly and the cost of flying and decided to drive. And the actual distance driven to Virginia Beach went up from 390 miles to 420 miles. So we were getting some folks that were really driving from longer distances to come.
And I read that there were some people, for example, who were planning originally to go to Florida, who decided the gas prices were just too much, so they'd stop in between. Tony, did you pick up many of those in Norfolk, do you think?
We had a good year last year as well, despite the economy. We do about 40% of our business is group business, and so
what is that, conventions? That
conventions
sort of thing?
and yes, meetings and conventions, and then those held very strongly for us last year.
And is that a year-round deal, conventions?
There's a season to it, May through October, September, October is heavy convention months, and then we have the off season.
Is the flying experience, which folks who do that regularly just say is notoriously much more difficult now, is that had an impact on business, do you think?
It has. We're fortunate to have Southwest Airlines, for
boy,
sure,
no kidding.
and then just extending their routes to New York and Boston have helped completely. So with them and AirTran out of Newport News, that really helps us to have the discount carriers.
It's a great point. And Bob Harris, one of the things that's changed since last year is that we know that Anheuser-Busch, owner of Busch Gardens, has a new ownership coming on board. If you're in the the Greater Williamsburg Chamber, I'm guessing that's something you're paying close attention to.
It is, but ironically, this is a year when they're adding lots of new activities. They've added Sesame Street Forest of Fun. They've just announced earlier this year that they're going to do Christmas Town. They weren't open during the Christmas season. So, you know, the changes aren't on the horizon that we see at this point, and they're moving ahead with really an aggressive year for tourism.
That's interesting, and you sort of, that doesn't sound like they're getting ready to pull up stakes if they're putting all that investment in.
Don't know that. We don't know, but it looks like they're going to probably put that off for at least a year or two.
Well, you know, every year counts.
That's right.
That's the way that goes. But I wonder, in terms of the ownership of that facility, that has to be something that you all are looking at from a strategic perspective and thinking through a variety of scenarios, I'm guessing, as to whether they keep it open and enhance it and good for everybody, or whether they decide, you know, this is not our business anymore.
They've been such a great community partner for us in the tourism area, but also the community overall, that we look forward to continuing to work with them and hope the new owners offer the same types of benefits to tourism and to the community. It's been great.
Now, I know last summer I think Colonial Williamsburg was a little soft and sort of ended the year a little soft, if I'm not mistaken.
I think like most destinations, the last half of the year was a little bit softer for us. We had such a great year in 2007. It's kind of hard for us to compare to 2000.
Yeah, really, when you have the Queen coming to town and all that,
kind of helps with tourism.
A lot of things sort of pale by comparison.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But we had better numbers than we had in 2006. And so far this year, our spring break numbers look pretty strong. So we're hoping that we'll see some good results this year.
So 08 over 06 was stronger.
Yes.
That's great.
Yes.
That's great. And you all do a lot of cooperative ventures, I know, in terms of advertising and marketing.
Definitely. We have the Williamsburg Area Destination Marketing Committee, which incorporates all of our major attractions, our Hotel Motel Association, the Williamsburg Chamber and Tourism Alliance, and the 3 municipalities. And we work together to put together a marketing plan to draw visitors into a destination.
Right. One of the other developments that's just new in the last year or so is this Southeast Virginia Tourism Alliance.
That's it, CVITA we call it. And it's really an alliance, just as we said, of all the CVBs in the region. And we work together to put a face on tourism, just to communicate what tourism does, the power of tourism for the region.
Was that, I'm curious, historically, was that difficult to do? Because years and years ago, there was a lot of talk about that, but it didn't seem to come to fruition.
It's a little difficult because of the different size of the entities involved. You know, you have some real small bureaus and some larger ones, but we've made it a very voluntary organization, pretty seamless, just get together and we talk about what's good for everyone, and we've had some real good success with it.
So how do you then coordinate your activities through this organization, and how's that differ from what you might do for Norfolk proper?
Well, we have a monthly meeting, and really we bring different initiatives to the table, and if it makes sense for the beach and us to work on something individually, then we'll say that makes sense. If everyone says, hey, we want to get together, you know, we're doing this year National Tourism Week. We're doing a Thank the Visitor Day at the airport, and we're giving all the visitors a deck of playing cards, and they have images from all the different cities of Hampton Roads in them. So that's one of the initiatives where
our play cards thing probably should work out a little bit better than that other playing cards thing did. How about the issue of the cruise terminal? What's happening with that?
The cruise industry is off, definitely being hurt by the economy. Long-range perspectives are still good. There's a lot of ships being built. And the facility itself is just phenomenal. If you haven't been there, it's much more than a cruise terminal, which is why we call it the Half Moon Cruise and Celebration Center.
Right.
It's a great place for weddings and events.
And boy, you've had a lot of them in there. It is a beautiful space, and I would say that it's probably been used more for that than cruises.
Probably
even,
at this
which
point,
is nice because we needed some more venues along those lines. So that's been helpful. You can't look at the demographics and not suspect that cruise is coming back.
Right, I agree. And again, because of the economy, now's a great time to take a cruise because they're really of value. But the number of ships coming online, the number of people with discretionary income and discretionary time on their hands, despite the economy, I think are going to it's a good prospect for the long term.
Give us a sense, Jim Ricketts, of where Hampton Roads and its tourism muscle stacks up within the Commonwealth. I would think just looking at the destinations we have, this has got to be a real powerhouse.
Well, it is. In fact, the total tourist spending in the Hampton Roads region last year was, in 2007, was $3.7 billion. Roger Dow, who heads the U.S. Travel Association, was our keynote speaker Friday at our National Tourism Week luncheon, and he looked on the national statistics and said this MSA, in terms of tourism impact, ranks 34th in the country.
Wow.
And that's a big statement because it's not only the beach and Williamsburg, but it's Busch Gardens, it's Nauticus, it's
34th in the country.
All the attractions. 34th in the country in terms of economic impact.
That really is significant.
Yeah.
When we think about trends, one of the things I think all of you are noticing is people waiting longer to make their plans and doing a lot more last-minute booking. Maybe those Priceline commercials are having an impact.
I think it's the consumers trying to figure out what they're going to do and making that decision at the last minute, looking at the wallet and seeing what's available and looking for the deals and the packages and things that are out there. And so all of us are working hard to make sure that we have that product available for the consumer so that when they're ready to make that last minute decision, we're ready to accommodate them. But we definitely are. We're seeing a lot of last minute bookings, even day of bookings.
So do you think that's about this idea that the perception is that there are bargains to be had? I presume the perception may be reality. I don't know. But
I think there are bargains. I think people are trying to put together packages that make it easier for the visitor to come see us and incorporating tickets, accommodations, meals, so that it's an easier decision, especially when you're making that last-minute decision.
Right.
It's even more important.
Yeah. But I bet, Jim Ricketts, my goodness, you have so many hotels down at the oceanfront. I started to make up an astronomical number. I just decided to say so many. But the truth is, if everybody's coming in at the last minute, it must be very difficult to plan for housekeeping and staff support, that sort of thing.
Yeah, absolutely. And every year we ask, well, how's the summer season shaping up? And honestly, we're into May, and a lot of people can't answer that question because a lot of folks are just booking within 2 weeks and 30 days, whether it's because of the economy or holding off for the deals or whatever. But Virginia Beach now, Kathy, is beyond just the resort area. That's the core to our tourism industry, but our city has evolved so much now in terms of town center, in terms of golf course development, in terms of our year-round packages and ecotourism, and our convention and group business, that we're moving more now into a year-round destination. In fact, that's what Council's destination point is to the Bureau, is to move Virginia Beach into a quality year-round destination. And right now, 63% of our visitors now come in September through May, outside of the summer season.
And I know that all of you advertise heavily in the D.C. area because the thinking is that those are folks who could take a weekend trip, which might be something that they could get in pretty quickly. And I guess that gives you the opportunity to capture somebody who might not commit to a week, but would certainly think about a weekend.
Absolutely. You've got 6 million consumers there who are looking for something to do. And Williamsburg, all of our destinations are a great place for them to make that last-minute decision to come spend a weekend. It's
so interesting, and we've talked about this some recently, about the idea that you have this idea that if you've been to a place, why then you've been to a place. There's no reason to go back. There's nothing new. But the truth of the matter is, with so many of these destinations, everything changes all the time. And I think that's particularly true when I think about Williamsburg, the new Revolutionary City program, which if you haven't seen it is terrific. You're walking down the street, the drama takes place right in front of you. and
you're
you're in it.
That's right.
You're in it. You know, they'll turn around and say something to you. Well, what do you think about that tariff? And you're like, I'm just trying to get to lunch, but okay, you know, whatever. It's a great program.
You have to keep creating new experiences, even with existing attractions. So things like Jamestown Settlement, Jamestown Island, they're continuing to come up with new things. Riverwalk in Yorktown, completely redone. But the one that I think from doing consumer shows that we talk to very often is Jamestown Island. And people remember going there as a kid, and they remember seeing the big monument and the foundations. And there's so much more to do there, from archaeological dig to going to see the Arcarium where all the artifacts are now stored. It brings it to life and makes it a much more personal experience to really know what these settlers were dealing with.
Yeah, it is a magnificent experience. There's no question about that. If I were to call you, Tony DeFilippo, and say, you know, I've got people coming in from out of town, and I don't want the usual suspects. I want something different that they haven't seen yet, or something that is just a marvelous secret. Where would you suggest?
First question I always ask a group or an individual: when's the last time you've been to Norfolk? Because even
yeah,
if you've been
question.
here, if you haven't been here for 5 years, you're going to see a whole new city.
Yeah.
But that being said, I would say the Ocean View section of the city, East Beach, that whole area has been remarkably redone, and the Ocean View fishing pier out there, and we have a vibrant little oceanfront community, new marinas, new restaurants out there, and it's a whole little new sub-market for us.
Yeah, it's tremendous, no question about it. How about you, Bob? If I asked you the same question, what would you say?
You know, we have new things every weekend. We actually created a website for it called WilliamsburgWeekends.com for people to come out and find new things to explore. Because it's not something brand new as far as an attraction each week. It is, again, that experience that's happening there.
Yeah.
So each week we send an e-blast out to consumers who are interested in finding out about what's going on in the Williamsburg area. And every weekend there's something different. This weekend we have a ton of things, from Water Country USA opening.
Is Water Country opening this
Yeah,
weekend?
this is the weekend Water Country opens. Come on out and check it out. It's a lot of fun. To having events at each one of our major attractions. So it changes every weekend for us.
See, here's the deal. I'm past the Water Country years and right over the Williamsburg Spa years. That's where I'm getting in the water. That's
we'll
all.
package both of them.
That's you know, that's the great thing. You think about ages and stages of life. There really is something for everybody. Jim Ricketts, how about you? If I asked you the same question, pick something that's not on the beaten path.
Not on the beaten path. Well, let's see. We've just passed the whale watching tours, which is in the ocean. We have dolphin watching tours, but there's a lot of activity down the southern part of the city, and then in Pungo, and a lot of folks go kayaking down near Blue Peats and, you know, close out to Sandbridge and in the Back Bay area, and the horse farms, and you know.
And that's something most people aren't really aware of.
And I forget the number, but there are just several horse farms, you know, located in the southern part of our city.
Yeah.
We have a couple new venues that are going to be coming online, and they're related to amateur sports venues, and one is DLH Center over in Northampton Boulevard, which is going to have an indoor track and indoor fields for competition. We've got a lot of activity going on at the Princess Anne Commons near the Sportsplex, a field house that's being built out there, as well as the Seven Cities Baseball, which is a training camp for young aspiring baseball players. So there's a lot of new activity and new product that's coming online.
I think Virginia Beach was early on into that market that is, I think, pretty lucrative, which is the parents who follow the little athletes all over.
Let me give you an example. We just had a National Wrestling Tournament. They gave a 10-year commitment to Virginia Beach.
My gosh.
3,500 competitors from throughout the country with their families in March. You know, so you couldn't ask for anything. A beautiful thing.
Wrestlers at the beach in March, great.
Right.
But you know, people underestimate that, because when those little athletes run around, I've been down this road before. You've got hotel rooms for the parents, you've got meals for everybody, and nothing ever runs on time. So you're going to eat extra meals you didn't plan to. It's a big deal. It's a big deal, no question about it.
Great economic impact.
Indeed it is. As you think about looking ahead in terms of trends and in terms of funding for tourism activities, if we accept that it's a tremendous impact in this community, very meaningful in this community, what are we doing in terms of funding the advertising and all the rest of it? What are the opportunities there?
Well, I've been a big proponent, and always have been, of a dedicated funding source from tourism-related taxes. And in Virginia Beach, we do have a formula that's based on hotel and restaurant tax that now brings in almost $10 million a year, and that funds our marketing and advertising program as well as running our visitor center. And that allows us to be competitive at a time when this business is becoming extremely, competitive. Sadly, though, our budget in Virginia Beach is more than the state's advertising budget.
Is that right?
That is right.
Wow.
In fact, my total budget is $25 million to operate the bureau.
Just for the beach, and that's more than what the state has.
Yeah. Now we're starting to get some progress with that. The General Assembly gave a little bit more money, but they had their budget cut from $22 million to $11 million 7 years ago, and I think they're up to about 14 right now. But it's hopefully we make some progress.
Why is there so little at the state level? Is it because there are competing priorities, or what's the issue?
Well, there are a lot of competing priorities, and then it goes back to a dedicated funding source, and that is what
because they don't have one at the state?
They don't have one, and they compete for the general fund money. And, it's a tough position to be in.
Sure.
So the industry, the tourism industry statewide, is pushing hard for the state to develop a dedicated funding source strictly for the tourism office.
And you talk about the competitive nature of the industry. Tony, you were telling me that you might go around the United States and you think, really, some states, what do they have? But it really is a pretty competitive game, isn't it?
USTA, U.S. Travel Association, says that 44 of the states, tourism is one of their top 10 industries. So everybody's out there competing for that tourism dollars because it's, I love this term, it's from Dr. Cook, exogenous revenue. It's revenue that comes in from outside the market.
That just sounds like I'd pay you $10,000 just for that word.
And,
exogenous?
Exogenous revenue. The money comes in from outside the region, and these folks spend their money here. We don't have to build schools, build infrastructure for them. They spend their money and leave and hopefully come back again.
That is a good word.
Isn't that a good word?
Now, you drop that in the conversation, people would be very impressed, no question about it. But that's an important point, because if we don't have to educate their children and we don't have to build the infrastructure for their homes and all the rest of it, we can welcome them if they can get through the tunnel, and all will be well. And speaking of the tunnel and transportation and what a continuing issue that is, what do you think about where we are with transportation? How much of a challenge is that for you?
Well, it's a big challenge and a growing challenge, and we like to think we're doing our job if we make it a bigger challenge, but we need to address it. We need to address it sooner rather than later. I think a big part of that could be the light rail system. Jim and I were just talking about, the possibilities of extending that to the beach and up to the base and hopefully to the other side of the water.
Sure.
Hopefully sooner rather than later. And if you talk about connecting that to high-speed rail up to D.C., one of our biggest markets, then I think we really talk about turning on the faucets.
Yeah. Is the traffic an issue for people coming to the beach? I mean, I'm guessing they talk about it.
You ask visitors what their #1 complaint is about Virginia Beach, or list their complaints.
Right.
Hampton Roads tunnel traffic is the #1 complaint.
Do you have any sense that people are avoiding the area as a result?
I've talked to them too, but I mean it's not overly prevalent, but it is occurring. But it is a challenge. I talked to somebody in
But
DC.
in a competitive world, that's a factor.
Yeah, it is. I talked to a couple up in D.C. They were professional folks. They decided to come to Virginia Beach for the first time. Long story short, it took them 6 hours to get to the beach. And about 2 of those hours were at the Hampton Roads tunnel trying to get through. And they said their time's more valuable than that.
Right.
They could go to Ocean City and not have it.
They could stop at Williamsburg and not have to get to the tunnel.
No, we don't take them away. But it's an issue for all of us, because even the traffic in areas like Washington, D.C. to get here, that even impacts us too.
Oh, that's a great point, yeah.
People who are leaving that area and trying to get to our areas, that also is a big drawback.
Yeah, all of which is can be handled in Richmond. Lots of folks think that's where it should be handled. Well, I want to thank all of you for being with us tonight. And what I wish for you is a season that is just like last, that exceeds your expectations. And maybe people will, if the economy just continues to show a few signs of life, maybe people will be hopeful and optimistic and want to get out and enjoy the sunshine and revolutionary history and come downtown and see the beautiful new downtown Norfolk and take that cruise. Thanks for being with us. I'll be back in just a moment with a final thought. I don't think I will ever forget the night that Liza Minnelli came to town. The legendary winner of just about every award entertainment has to offer played one big show at Chrysler Hall, and what a show it was. Liza with a Z is still a bona fide star. With nothing more than that one arm and that characteristic downward pump, she lets you know something spectacular is coming. Liza took control of that big stage at the Chrysler, and she didn't give it back until the curtain came down. Liza Minnelli in Norfolk, I marveled. Who'd have ever thought that? Well, I'll tell you who'd have thought it. One man who had a vision for an art festival that would not only gather all of us, but would draw people from all over the country. Now, 13 years later, the Virginia Arts Festival has put Hampton Roads on the map, literally, for arts patrons all over the world. Rob Cross is the guy who dreamed it up. Along with Scott Jackson, Rob was and still is a percussionist with the symphony. But he's also invited Hampton Roads to march to the beat of a different drum, and we are all very much the better for it. That's all for this edition of What Matters, but here's a look at what we are working on at the moment. We'll share a special half hour with the last nun at St. Mary's Home for Disabled Children. Sister Mary June Morin has spent 50 remarkable years in religious life. And then all at one table, we'll have 3 local college and university presidents joining us to talk about the state of higher education in Hampton Roads and the challenges they face. And in the coming weeks, we will mix it up again with another edition of our editorial roundtable. Now, here's how you can stay on top of what matters and what we have in the works for you. You can get a weekly e-bit in your email. Just sign up at our website, whatmatters.tv. And while you're there, you can send us an email. You can join us as a fan on our Facebook page and tell us what matters to you. You can also send your letters to 5200 Hampton Boulevard, Norfolk, Virginia, 23508, or call us at 889-9425. Any way you choose, we always look forward to hearing from you. Thanks so much for watching. I'm Kathy Lewis. We'll see you next time for another look at What Matters.